Hello, Core Life. It's Lauren Melton here, registered dietitian at Core Life in Odenton. Thanks for joining me today on Eating Well with Core Life. Today we're going to continue our Busting Macronutrient Myths series and talk about the importance of healthy fats in your diet and bust some of the myths that you may have heard about fat. But before we get started, I want to remind you again that even though our clinics are temporarily closed, you can still meet with your care team through a telehealth visit and track your progress using CoreLife's app and remote patient monitoring program. If you're interested in doing this and scheduling a telehealth visit, just reach out to your office, give them a call or send them an email, and they will be happy to get you scheduled. So let's get started. Like I said, we're talking about fat today. So first, let's start with the basic understanding of fat. So there's typically four common types of fats that we see a lot of: saturated, polyunsaturated, monounsaturated, and trans fat. So saturated fat is typically fat that's solid at room temperature, and it's usually the type of fat that you find in red meat, dairy, and coconut oil, right? Foods that contain monounsaturated fats are going to be things like avocado, olive oil, and nuts. Then we have polyunsaturated fats, and those are going to be the types most commonly found in vegetable oils like corn oil, sunflower oil, flaxseed, and soybean oils. Omega-3 and omega-6, I'm sure you've heard of those before, are technically considered polyunsaturated fats. So when you think of polyunsaturated, you can think of your omega-3s and omega-6s. Trans fat is made during the processing of food, and it's pretty much almost illegal to be found in foods lately that you can buy at the store. So those typically aren't very good for you, and you don't really find it much anymore, but something to be aware of. When you eat any fat, really, it's a combination of different types of fat. So one fat that pretty much everyone knows to be healthy is olive oil, right? So about 73% of olive oil is considered monounsaturated, so that's the good types of fat. 11% polyunsaturated, still good, but it still is about 14% saturated. But we consider it, for the most part, on average, to be a very good fat. So just to give you an example, kind of every oil has some sort of, profile that covers all three fats, right? So now that we have that information, let's bust some fat myths, shall we? So myth number one, all fat is bad. Well, like I just told you, not all of them are bad, but your body needs fat, just like we've talked about this past week that your body needs carbohydrates and proteins to function optimally. Your body also needs fat. Fat is a part of every cell in your body, and your brain, believe it or not, is about 60% fat. So it's no surprise when I tell you that consuming healthy fats plays a huge role in your brain health. Fat also has a role in regulating hormones, your body temperature, your immune function, plays a big part in reproduction, insulin signaling, and nutrient absorption. And we have four vitamins, vitamins A, D, E, and K. We call them the fat-soluble vitamins, and those are reliant upon fat for absorption. So if you're not eating enough fat, those vitamins may not be being processed in your body optimally. Saturated fat and trans fat tend to be the types of fats we think of as harmful to our bodies, while unsaturated fats, the monos and the polys, are the types that are useful and we consider healthy. So as you can see, like I just said, fats are an essential part of any diet, so not all fats are bad, right? Myth number two, fat raises cholesterol. Not always so. So, like we talked about earlier, the mono and the polyunsaturated are the good fats. They don't raise your total cholesterol or your LDL cholesterol. So, LDL is the bad cholesterol, and I remember that by thinking L, loser. They can help to reduce LDL cholesterol and raise HDL cholesterol, which is your good cholesterol. So, L for loser, because that's bad. H for happy, because that's good. That's how I remember LDL and HDL. So mono and poly don't raise your LDL, or they can reduce your LDL and increase the good. Trans fats do raise cholesterol and should just be avoided, like we talked about. There's conflicting research on saturated fats and cholesterol lately. So, saturated fats may increase your LDL, the loser, and HDL, or may just have a neutral effect. So, it's still recommended to limit your intake for now. Myth number 3, fat makes you fat. Research shows that people who eat a moderate or high-fat diet lose weight or just as much weight than people who eat a low-fat diet, right? So dietary fat doesn't automatically convert to body fat. It's true that fat does contain more calories per gram than protein or carbohydrates, but all calories aren't the same. So when we talk about containing more calories per gram, so whenever you eat a gram of carbohydrates or protein, you get 4 calories, okay? Whenever you eat a gram of fat, you get 9 calories, so even more than double. So really what gets converted to body fat is just excessive calories anyway. So excess calories from carbs and protein can also be converted to fat. Fat slows down your digestion and helps you to feel more satisfied after a meal, and really helps, like I said, with that satiety. So fat is a good part of a meal. And as we spoke about over the past 2 days when we talked about protein and carbohydrates, having a healthy mix of all nutrients is key to staying healthy and losing weight the right way. The way that you gain weight is eating too many calories, eating more calories than you burn. So just be sure to monitor your portion sizes, especially of fat, because it's very easy to go overboard with fat. That's why the serving sizes of nuts is so small, because the calories can get crazy quickly. So if you have any questions about your fat intake, reducing your fat intake, what you should be intaking for fat, your percentages or whatever, chat with your RD. This is something that we have record of and that we can talk you through, okay? The next myth. Fat-free products are always a good choice. So while low-fat foods may seem like a smart choice all the time, these foods aren't always good for your overall health. So unlike naturally fat-free foods like fruits and vegetables, some fat-free foods that are processed can contain ingredients that negatively affect your metabolism, your body weight, and more. So usually what happens is if you have a product that, let's take salad dressing for instance. If you get a fat-free salad dressing, right, usually doesn't really taste that good, but what they do to actually give it taste, because like I said earlier, fat gives things taste. So whenever you take that fat out, they have to put something back in there to make it palatable. So what typically happens is they just pump it with sugar. So even though they may have fewer calories, they're typically higher in sugar for that purpose. So consuming high amounts of sugar, which we've talked about before, has been associated with progression of chronic conditions like heart disease, obesity, and diabetes, those added sugars, right? Eating foods rich in added sugar may negatively affect certain hormones in your body, and can lead you to consume more calories in general, right? Which can ultimately lead to weight gain. So fat-free products that are unnaturally fat-free, for instance, again, the salad dressing, can sometimes contain things like preservatives, artificial food dyes, that some people may prefer to avoid for health reasons. And like I said earlier, they're just really not as satisfying as foods that contain fat. So instead of trying to cut calories by choosing really high processed fat-free products, work on enjoying small amounts of whole nutritious source of fats, or just choose a lower fat. Like usually with salad dressings, I say choose a lighter one, because they don't really necessarily add anything to it. They just take some of that fat away just to take away some of those extra calories, right? And my last myth, this is my soapbox. I will get on this one till the day that I die. Myth number 5, coconut oil is a healthy fat. So a lot of people on the internet these days are talking about coconut oil. It's a big buzzword. But just some education behind here. 1 tablespoon of coconut oil contains about 120 calories and about 14 grams of fat. And that's around the daily limit of fat grams recommended for people who have or are at risk for heart disease. And you know how I told you earlier that every oil has some sort of profile of unsaturated to saturated fat, and coconut oil is about 80 to 90% saturated fat. So, just for comparison, butter is about 63% saturated fat. Beef fat is about 50% saturated, and pork lard is about 39%. So, coconut oil is the most saturated fat that there is. So, if you're trying to, work on avoiding saturated fats, coconut oil is not something that you want to have in your diet. Olive oil and canola oil, usually better choices, are only about 15 or less percent saturated fat. So like we talked about earlier, having saturated fats in large levels or large amounts can be bad for your heart. They can, like we talked about, it's possible that they could raise your bad cholesterol and increase your risk of developing heart disease as a result. There have been some studies that show that people from India, the Philippines, Polynesia, that include coconut in their diets have lower rates of heart disease, but it's not to account for other aspects of their lifestyle and diets that may not line up with our ways of life, right? And the coconut that they eat is not as processed as most coconut oil products that we consume and that we have access to. So if you have a recipe, that uses coconut oil for the flavor, use it occasionally, but use it sparingly, and choose other products for your everyday cooking, like your olive oil or things like that. But something I do want to mention, coconut oil does have some beneficial uses. It's really effective as a moisturizer for your skin and for your hair. So I usually tell people, put it all over here, but don't put it in here. So just keep it out of your mouth. So with that being said, what type of fat should you be eating? So think about eating whole foods and including things like nuts, nut butter, seeds. Fish have some fish has really good sources of fat. Avocado, eggs, olives, and olive oil. Eating a variety of whole foods that you enjoy can ensure, that you're going to get those healthy fats. If you have any specific questions surrounding your fat intake, like I said, chat with your RD about that at your next visit. So I hope that was educational for you. Thanks for joining me today. This kind of wraps up our macronutrient series. Tomorrow we'll be talking about exercise, and then the next day about the importance of fiber. So be sure to tune in for those. Don't forget to subscribe to our Core Life YouTube channel, and don't forget the cooking demos with Nick, the workouts with Corey. We hope that you're continuing to stay safe. We hope to see you soon. Stay healthy. Stay happy. We love you, and let us know if you need anything. Bye.